Morning, committee. We're going to go ahead and kick off. I'm going to start with request for bill introductions. Scott Schneider, welcome to the committee again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Scott Schneider, Kansas Restaurant and Hospitality Association, and I'd like to introduce two bills. One is 22 RS 3504 would deal with the definition of employee retention tax credit and make sure the state mirrors the federal tax application on that. The second.
Let's deal with that one first, if you don't mind. Thank you, Scott. Any questions? Any objection? Seeing none, we'll make the request. Thank you.
The second one, I don't have an RS yet, but it deals with worker classification and make sure that the state appropriately interprets worker classification related to a court case that just came down. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And committee, any questions? Any objection? We'll make the request for both of those. Thank you, Scott. Committee, any other bill requests? Seeing none, we'll move on. I do have, we'll open the hearing on Senate Bill 450. Amelia, will you give us an overview? Oh, I'm sorry. 540. Just a second. I'm going to change the order, committee. Out of respect for Senator Hildebrand, we're going to open the hearing on Senate Bill 384. Would that be the correct? Yes, thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Senate Bill number 384 would provide an income tax credit for certain qualified property taxes levied on homesteads beginning with tax year 2022. The bill would establish an income tax credit for individual taxpayers who are citizens of the United States and residents of Kansas in an amount equal to the amount of qualified property taxes levied on the taxpayer's homestead. The credit shall not exceed $1,000 per year per taxpayer. The credit is not refundable and may not be carried forward, and no credit would be allowed when delinquent property taxes are owed on the homestead. If you look at the bill, there is a definition for qualified property taxes. And it's important to note that qualified property taxes is the total amount of ad valorem property tax for that tax year of only those taxing subdivisions that levied ad valorem property taxes at a rate equal to or lower than their revenue neutral rate pursuant to KSA 792988 as adjusted to reflect an average change in the consumer price index. And the bill would take effect from and after publication in the statute book.
Thank you, Amelia. Committee, any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Well, welcome to the committee, Senator Hildebrand. Thank you for bringing the bill to us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee members, honorable committee members, and thank you for having this hearing and accommodating the time for me to speak to you today on this Senate bill. Amelia did a great job explaining it. I probably couldn't explain or talk about it any better than she did. So with that, probably the only thing I would add is if you noticed at the end, it used a lot of the work that this committee and you, especially Madam Chair, worked on Senate Bill 13. It uses a lot of that information to enact this legislation. So with that, I'll stand for questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Solentrop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Senator. Happy to have you here. Would you have any idea on the number of income taxpayers in your district that would or wouldn't benefit from this?
No, I do not know. The only number I could give you that would be halfway meaningful is usually whenever a county does their budget process, they always figure a percentage of delinquents, and that fluctuates from county to county. I know in Cherokee County, it ranges anywhere from 7 to 10%.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Senator Solontrop.
The reason I ask that is because I know there's numerous retirees and the elderly that often pay little to no income tax. And this may be a little late in the game, but perhaps they could receive a credit equal to their tax on their property tax bill to halt or slow down the ongoing increased valuations and give them some sort of relief. So again, just an idea, just a thought. So thank you.
Thank you. Senator Hildebrand?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Solontrop, I think that's a great idea, and I'd be definitely amicable to an amendment if that, and call it friendly, if that was something that the body of your committee decided on.
Thank you. I think that we'll definitely take a close look at that. Any other questions, committee? Well, Senator, I'd like to thank you for your efforts on trying to lower property tax for Kansans.
Thank you, committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Committee, next up is Mark Toon. Would you rather wait? Okay, so Mark would have written testimony for this legislation. Is there any other proponents for the bill? Anybody would like to be an opponent on the bill? Anybody to testify neutral on the bill? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 384. Committee will open the hearing on Senate Bill 540. Amelia, do you mind giving us an overview?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Senate Bill number 540 would expand the Selective Assistance for Effective Senior Relief income tax credit that's commonly referred to as the Safe Senior Credit for certain residential property taxes beginning with tax year 2022. Currently, the statute 7932-263 provides a refundable income tax credit in an amount equal to 75% of the amount of property taxes actually and timely paid by a taxpayer who is 65 years of age or older, and who has a household income equal to or less than 120% of the federal poverty level for two persons. If such taxes were paid on that property, which is used for residential purposes, which is their principal place of residence. Beginning in tax year 2022, the bill would amend this statute to expand the credit to provide additional percentages to certain additional income levels. The bill would provide a credit for an amount equal to 50% of the amount of property taxes paid by those who are 65 or older and have a household income of more than 120% and equal to or less than 200% of the federal poverty level for two persons. So it adds an additional tier. The 75% level of 120% or less would remain in place. This would be an additional credit for an additional income level. The bill would also provide a credit in an amount equal to 25% of such property taxes paid by a taxpayer who's 65 years of age or older, who has household income more than 200% and equal to or less than 285% of the federal poverty level for two persons. And the bill would take effect from and after publication in the statute book. And you may be wondering what those numbers actually mean. And I have a little additional information for you that's not in the bill this morning, if you would like it, Madam Chair. For tax year 2021, my understanding of what the current law of equal to or less than 120% of the federal poverty level for two persons, what that means when you're looking at a household income number, that is currently at $20,900 or less. Okay.
No, go ahead.
And if the bill would take effect with tax year 2022, but I don't know what the federal poverty level for two persons would be in 2022 yet. So if we were to look at it from the perspective of if this bill were in effect for 21, what would the numbers generally look like for this bill? So the 75% would be a household income of $20,900 or less. And then the 50% level would range from $20,900 to approximately $34,800, rounded a little bit there. And then the 25% level would be from that income up to approximately $49,600 as the household income limit for the 25%. So it would be a tiered system.
That was the intent. Thank you, Amelia. And if you could get that as a handout for the committee, that'd be helpful. Thank you. Committee, any questions for Amelia? Senator Holland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Amelia, for being here. I just have a technical question for you. And at the appropriate time, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a request of legislative research. But I'm very glad that this bill got teed up because I think this is a key piece of property tax relief for Kansas citizens. Can you just delineate for me the qualifiers? I know there's an income amount and there's a home valuation amount. So what are those two mechanisms in this specifically? If you could compare that to the homestead. And I'm talking about the current statute. I'm not necessarily speaking to this, but just the current statute.
Amelia, that might be a question for Eddie. Do you want?
The current valuation limit is $350,000 for the programs.
Thank you. Senator Holland.
Additional question for Eddie then, and then what is the income limit? I mean, I know it's based upon federal poverty, but my question would be, Madam Chair, for Eddie, is that for the entire household, or is that the income limit of the owner of the property and their spouse only?
Thank you, Eddie, or Amelia. Either one of you, I actually know the answer to, so Amelia.
Madam Chair, for the Safe Senior Credit, which is the bill before you today, the current, it is the household income.
Senator Holland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to clarify, every adult living in that homestead generating income, that would go towards the yardstick, correct?
Amelia.
I believe it's all members of the household.
Including youth. Thank you. Senator Holland.
And then a final request, Madam Chair, if Eddie could, I really want to see how our current homestead program as is, and then the current Save Senior, can we get like without getting into specific taxpayer information, can we get like a scatter plot as far as across the state where usage of these programs are without revealing sensitive individual taxpayer information? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Eddie, would that be possible?
I'll visit with the Department of Revenue. I'm not certain off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Eddie, would you mind putting together a spreadsheet chart, just the comparison of the different programs so that we can see the parameters easily and quickly? That was the intent of queuing up these bills today, committee, so that we would know what we're looking at overall. I think everybody's in agreement, property tax relief, but we're not quite sure how to get there yet. So, any other questions for Amelia? Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In the bill, it mentions several times ad valorem taxes actually and timely paid. I understand what actually paid. That means you paid them. What's the definition of timely paid?
Amelia?
There is another statute regarding when tax payments are due. Generally, for real estate, I believe, I don't have it in front of me, I believe if you wish to pay the full amount, it is due on December 20th. If you wish to pay in halves, I believe it is December 20th and May 10th of the following year are the two half payments. That would be when the payment is due before interest starts to accrue.
Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So the definition, as I heard you say, would be timely paid means paid prior to any date that would cause any additional penalties or interest to accrue. I guess my thinking is, for me, timely paid is whenever I get around to it. But I do know that we have the date of December 20th. If it's not paid on December 20th, half of it, then on December 21st, the full thing is due. And so but if it's defined in statute, that's fine, but I want to have an understanding of.
This particular statute does not have a further definition of timely, and it might be something that the Department of Revenue, from an administrative perspective, might be able to share how they interpret that for purposes of this statute.
Thank you. We'll ask the department, and Senator, if maybe we take a look at their definition, their expectation, and make an amendment as necessary. Okay. Thank you. Committee, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Amelia. Committee, our first conferee is Mark Toom. Welcome to the committee.
Chair Tyson, members of the Senate Tax Committee, my name is Mark Toom. I'm the Vice President of Governmental Relations with the Kansas Association of Realtors. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony in support of really several pieces of legislation that reduce the property tax burden of Kansas homeowners. Property taxes are routinely polled or surveyed as the most despised tax in Kansas and across the nation, and I'm sure they're the subject of many of your constituents' calls. And with seemingly most hated status and an increasing burden on Kansas homeowners, I do feel a little lonely up here advocating for property tax here as one of the only proponents on several of these bills. You have my testimony in front of you, and CAR's legislative policy statement provides that realtors believe that real estate is burdened with an excessive share of the consistently increasing cost of state and local government. And a recent poll, I think, study showcased that property taxes made up 73% of Kansas local government tax collections, and which is 3 times more than what sales tax collections. And now our policy statement recognizes that a lot of important programs are funded from property taxes, but also we ask policymakers to consider the impacts of property taxes on taxpayers and certainly the housing market. The legislation that you have in front of you, I'll just provide some brief comments. The Safe Senior Program is one of the most effective programs right now to keep seniors in their homes, and I think the expansion and the tiers that you provide in this legislation are adequate. I think to really provide targeted tax relief to seniors at those lower income levels, and again, keeping seniors in their homes. That the next bill on your list here, 462, that was I think is also a good program that does provide targeted tax relief. It's at a little bit at $50,000 income. I'll point out the nice thing is that it does allow to grow. I think that it's key to have income and also housing restrictions, the price of houses in these that are allowed to grow. I think no matter what program you use, because $350,000 can be a significant hurdle in some markets in this state. The last piece of legislation was actually the first one that was mentioned by Senator Hildebrand, Senate Bill 384. That is certainly what we would recognize as significant property tax relief. And I think that provides $1,000 property tax. It does have a significant fiscal note, but I certainly, with competing priorities, with your surplus funds, if you're going to prioritize property tax relief, that is certainly one to take a look at. CAR, the Kansas Association of Realtors, supports property tax relief and is encouraged by these and other proposals to reduce the property tax reliance. on state and local governments, and thank you for your time and consideration. Be happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Mark. Committee, any questions? Senator Peck?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Because of, and I'm sorry, you're the one that's standing in front of us, so this question may or may not be for you, but I just thought of it while you were up there.
Yep.
And so if it's for staff, we can get that answer a little bit later. But it looks like to me, because of what we were told by our revisor, that it's the household income, we could classify this as kick the lazy bum kid out of the basement, because if they earn any income, it counts against my house. But having said that, do you know two questions I will ask them, then see if you want to answer. How would it be determined? Let's say if son got a divorce, his wife kicks him out, and he comes and lives with me for 4 months, but he still has a job and earns income. Part of his income was earned while he was in the household, but not the entire year. So would his income count against, and I'm not 65, but if I were. And then two, if he lives with me the whole year, but I don't report his income on this program, are there any penalties if revenue were to learn that I fraudulently obtained because it was household income, not just mine?
I would leave that one to the revisor. This is not a bill that I wrote, but we support.
Thank you, Mark. Amelia, would you mind researching those, or Eddie? I mean, either one. Yeah, if you'll research those and get back to the committee, that'd be great. Thank you. Senator Holland?
Just to respond to Senator Peck, and maybe I'm totally out of line here. I noticed Kathleen Smith is here, but my guess is that basically they would capture that type of fraud when that younger adult was filing their income tax and look at the address on the return. And then they can match that up with potentially or not. But I think that's a way it could be flagged. But I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. I do have a question for the revisor, the conferee when appropriate.
Please continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mark, thanks for being here today. And full disclosure to the committee, and I alluded to this on the floor, I'm really glad we did what we did on 282 the other day. We just had an article in the Journal World. Our county appraiser basically was talking about how, at least in Douglas County, this was the highest increase in valuations they've ever seen. I think across the board is like an average of 15%. I'm assuming that's kind of across the board in our major metropolitan areas, Northeast and South Central. Would that be an appropriate assertion or not?
I would think so. I think with the housing market, what is done in the most recent 2 or 3 years, you're going to see certainly highly urbanized areas, probably a little bit higher, but still you're probably on target.
So, Madam Chair, one more question. Sure. So my point is this, is that, we passed out in 282 a version, I believe, of the 462, and that was written originally just to be curtailed specifically to the existing homestead thing. And I want to go back to your comment you made about, it sounds like you would be supportive of recognizing the ability of valuations as well as income to grow over time. I'm just wondering if you'd have a comment. I know the way as the version was passed out in 282, basically if that person would qualify for the base year, every year after that, their next year's property still has to come in under 350. And my point is that I wonder maybe if we need to consider at some point, Madam Chair, whatever, the point that, maybe on that type of legislation, once they make the initial base year qualification under that 350,000, maybe they continue to remain in the program. Otherwise, I think they're going to phase out real quick. I'm expecting double-digit increases for the next several years. Several, but it wouldn't surprise me if that ratchet continues up, those pressures against valuations, depending how hot the housing market is. Just want to see, Mark, what your thoughts on that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mark.
We'd definitely be supportive of inflationary measures towards either the price of the house in these equations or income to keep up, so that you don't have to keep coming back here to retool these programs. If they're working, then they should be allowed to grow with the economy and be based on an inflationary number.
Thank you. Committee, any other questions? Seeing none,
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to testify as a proponent? Are there any opponents to the bill? Any neutral testimony? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 540 and open the hearing on Senate Bill 462, I think. Let me check. Yep, 462. So, Amelia, would you mind giving us an overview?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Senate Bill number 462 would provide a homestead property tax refund to certain persons based on the increase in property tax over a base year, beginning with tax year 2021. The bill would provide a refund computed by deducting the claimant's base year ad valorem property tax amount for their homestead from the property tax amount for the tax year for which the refund is being sought. A claimant means a person that for the entire year was domiciled in Kansas and who is 65 years or older or a disabled veteran. They would also be required to have a household income of $50,000 or less. This income threshold would increase after the first year of tax year 2021 by a cost of living adjustment that's provided in the bill. The base year means the year in which an individual becomes an eligible claimant. And for any individual who would otherwise have been an eligible claimant prior to the year 2020, their base year would be deemed to be tax year 2020. A taxpayer would not be eligible for a claim for a refund under this provision if they have either received a homestead claim under the current provision of KSA 794508 or the Safe Senior Credit for that same tax year. So this would be a third alternative to the current homestead, the Safe Senior, and then this program, which is also incorporated within the homestead program. There would be two alternatives within that program. For tax year 2021, claimants would be allowed to file their claim with the Department of Revenue on or before April 15th of 2023. And the provisions of the new section would be a part of and supplemental to the Homestead Property Tax Refund Act. The bill also contains some amendments to some statutes that are contained within the Homestead Act in order to incorporate these new provisions and account for this new refund option. And the bill would take effect from and after publication in the Kansas Register, and I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Thank you, Amelia. Committee questions? Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In looking at page 1, and then, sorry, I haven't had a chance to look through every other page, but it talks about, or it mentions a claimant means, and then it, in B says disabled veteran. I guess I had it in my head that generally in statute for these type of programs, we defined a percentage of disabled veteran. Is that not correct?
Madam Chair, there is a definition. This new provision is being proposed to be incorporated within the Homestead Refund Act that currently exists. And the definition of disabled veteran that exists in the program, you can actually find at the top of page 5. It is in KSA 794502. There is a definition of disabled veteran, and there is actually a slight amendment there that would insert the words or greater after 50%.
Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Okay, I appreciate that, but so it wouldn't necessarily be necessary each time disabled veteran is mentioned to put the 50% or greater because it is defined in a particular statute?
Amelia.
Yes, this particular new section 1, the very last subsection, it does become a part of and supplemental to the Kansas Homestead Refund Act, and that definition is a part of that act.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Senator, any other questions for me? Thank you, Amelia. So Committee, you know I like to run an efficient committee. I don't think we've ever been this efficient, though. Our conferee testified for 462 in the last. Would you have a question for, okay, Senator Solentrop?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you know the rationale behind the $50,000 income limit?
I do not. We can ask research to look into that. Senator Holland, it's current statute, though.
Yeah, the Senator Solentrop, it was purposely set at $50,000 because that's what matches the current statute for the traditional homestead. And I think the thinking where it was that they didn't want this new option of homestead to be perceived as being any more generous or rich than what was there for the current parameters of the homestead as it exists.
If I may, I think he's asking why the original 50%. And so we're going to ask research. Senator Solentrop.
No, I'm actually referring to the income itself because, I know many retirees that are, one person might bring home, $2,200 to $2,400 a month in Social Security, and the other one brings home $1,400, $1,500. You know what? That's $4,000 a month. That's $48,000 a year, and they're paying $300, $400, $500 a month in property tax bills, and they're struggling with this. So I guess what I'm looking for is perhaps a wholesale change. I mean, we're talking about inflation on issues all over the place, and it doesn't preclude this. So I'd like to, take or have strong consideration of some modification there in some way, shape, or form so that we can, again, provide further relief from these ongoing increasing valuations and property tax assessments. It's just like Senator Holland indicated, it's not going to stop this year. This is going to go on. So we need to find an answer. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Solentrop. And I know you're new to the committee. This committee's been studying this issue for years, and we have looked at several states. In fact, I'll get Eddie to distribute that research to the committee again from previous years on property tax freezes, different options. I appreciate the way you're thinking. I think you're a great asset to the committee because that's how a majority of us think. We need to get something accomplished. Senator Holland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I very much appreciate Senator Solentrop's comments. I agree. I think the 462 was introduced as a way to make it consistent with existing homestead, but I totally share your concerns and desires to bump up that income level, as well as to allow some mechanism where once they qualify for the base year, that no longer goes back to the valuation of the home. I would also add, too, that referring to Chairwoman Tyson's comments about looking at this for several years, I'm not sure officially the committee did it, but I know I went back and I looked at, there's a number of circuit breaker programs across the country, and the beauty of those is that you don't have to make constitutional changes to classifications of property structure to implement them. This 462, I think it is unique from the perspective of it truly is the only circuit breaker, if implemented, I have found in the nation where it truly freezes property taxes without a constitutional change. And so because the others are based upon just a sliding scale of rebates. So that's, I think, the unique value of the 462 and a tool in the toolkit as a word for property tax relief. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. And it is property tax relief, but it is a transfer also of the burden on the state versus local governments who actually are raising the property taxes. So we do need to figure out that equation. It's a fine line we're walking, and that's why I thought we should take a look at all of these programs. Mark, would you like to testify again, or are you sufficient? Okay, great. Is there anybody else that would like to testify for 462? Any opponents to 462? Anyone neutral on 462? If not, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 462. I have a point of personal privilege for Senator Kirshen.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Fortunate to have two pages with me today participating. They are Scarlett Andrews and Ashton May from Clearwater, 8th graders, and they'll be here all day and helping me find my way around. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you, and welcome to the Tax Committee. Committee, I'll turn your attention to Senate Bill 403. We've got some time. We're going to try to work a couple of bills. Do you mind giving us an overview?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Senate Bill number 403 would allow Wilson County to submit to its electors the ability to impose a countywide retailer sales tax at a rate of 0.25%, 0.5%, 0.75%, or 1%, and pledge the revenue received for the purpose of supporting emergency medical and ambulance services in the county. The tax would expire after 10 years from the date it's first collected, but could be extended upon another election. And the revenue from the levy would be remitted to the county. And the bill would take effect from and after publication in the statute book.
So committee, we have a couple of options on this bill. We could pass it out as is on the consent calendar, or I do know that there was a House bill for Latham City that it is a similar issue, only it's not ambulance and emergency, but they would like the opportunity to, they had an election on a sales tax and a newspaper inadvertently missed reporting the issue, the election before the election occurred. And so they are coming to the legislature to try to get that rectified. Since the committee hasn't heard that, you may not be comfortable putting that in this bill, but it would be a good fit. So committee, what are your wishes on this bill? Either way would be acceptable. Senator Peck, and if you want to, we could wait and get the bill, a copy of the bill, if you want to amend it, or if you want to do, whatever you want to do, Senator, whatever your wishes are.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Because of the fact that Wilson County in 403 did it the way that the statute calls for, meaning come to us and then hold the election, and I'm not wanting to disparage Latham or their process. Someone apparently dropped the ball somewhere, but I would just prefer to reward Wilson County with a clean bill, but I'm only one member. Yes. Yes, I would, having said that, I would make a motion that we pass out Senate Bill 403 favorably and place it on the consent calendar.
It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved by Senator Peck, seconded by Senator Baumgardner. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Committee, I'll turn your attention to Senate Bill 180.
Madam Chair,
Thank you, Amelia.
certainly. Senate Bill 180 provides a sales tax exemption for certain purchases by disabled veterans of the Armed Forces of the United States beginning January 1 of 2022. As a reminder, this is a bill from last session that you heard during committee last year. The bill would provide a sales tax exemption for sales of food and food ingredients, grooming and hygiene products, and household personal products to Kansas residents who have been honorably discharged from active service and who are certified to have disability compensation at the 100% rate. and that the disability is permanent, and was sustained through military action, accident, or resulted from disease contracted while in such active service. Sales qualifying for the exemption shall not exceed $35,000 per year per eligible person. The eligible person would make an application to the Secretary of Revenue for an exemption identification number that would be provided on an exemption certificate presented to a retailer when claiming the exemption. And the Secretary may request an eligible person claiming exemption to provide a statement regarding total sales amounts. The definitions of food and food ingredients, grooming and hygiene products, and household personal products are also provided in the bill, and the bill would take effect from and after publication in the statute book.
Any questions for Amelia? Seeing none, Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I appreciate you bringing this forward. This was a carryover from last year. Committee, you will notice in your folder that I have provided a copy of an Oklahoma Tax Commission exemption card. This is something that I stumbled onto between sessions installing a storm shelter for my son's business. A lady said that she would be sales tax exempt from the storm shelter. I asked her why, and she told me. I said, well, we need documentation. So I took a picture with my cell phone of the card she has. It is a driver's license size card, and you will notice down in the bottom right of the copy that you have, it says spouse. And the reason is she is not a disabled military veteran, but her husband was. He has since passed, but she will continue to receive that exemption as long as she does not remarry. So in other words, as long as she's considered a widow of that veteran. And so I did this just so you could see how another state does it. I should have taken a picture of the back of the card, but I did not. And it's fairly simple for a merchant. They just take the card just like your driver's license would have some type of a design on the back that the computer can read, and then they would know what the exemption number is. So that is the reason that is in there, for you to see how another state does it. And you can see the effective date, but there is no expiration date. This is a one-time card. It's good for the rest of their life. And Madam Chair, if I may, I have asked for a balloon amendment to this legislation, and I will offer that at the proper time.
That would be now, Senator Peck.
Okay.
We're going to be a little short on time if we don't hurry. Thank you.
I will be fairly quick then. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would ask that staff pass out the balloon. The balloon does a couple things. One, it changes the year from January 1 of 22 to January 1 of 23, and it does put a language in there so that a surviving spouse of an eligible disabled veteran would continue to receive this exemption. And then the next box down, when you see the balloon, it specifies that the Department of Revenue shall provide this tax exempt number on a driver's licensed sized card rather than a full sheet of paper, which is cumbersome for a disabled veteran to carry around, so they can just pull it out of their billfold. However, if they don't have their card with them, if they know what their exemption number is, they can then tell the merchant, and that is what the third balloon is, what their exemption number is, so they would be exempt. And again, this is for food, personal hygiene items, and household cleaning supplies is the way that I would classify it. And it is capped at $35,000, as has already been mentioned. But so that's the balloon. Do you want me to make a motion to adopt the balloon and then discuss it, or?
That would be fine, Senator.
Yeah, I would move that we amend Senate Bill 180 with the balloon amendment as presented.
Thank you, Senator Peck. Is there a second on the motion? It's been moved by Senator Peck, seconded by Senator Corson. Discussion on the amendment. Senator Baumgardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I remember our discussion last year about this. I remember the veterans, disabled veterans that came and spoke to us. I am curious how the card will work if people are self-checking out, or how does that work in a store?
Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my understanding is Now, this is going to be your self-checkouts like your Walmarts and so forth. They scan their card just like a lot of places. You have a card for Dillon's and various other places where you scan that before you start checking out, so you receive discounts on some of the items that you purchase. So this would be the same method where they scan their card, and then the purchases that are exempt would not be taxed.
And Madam Chair, my only other question is our Department of Revenue able to produce such a card?
Kathleen, would you mind? I think we might need to delay the date on implementation, possibly. Thank you, Kathleen.
Madam Chair, Kathleen Smith with the Department of Revenue. I would need to go back and review the amendment. Right now, we would issue a full page, like Senator Peck had said, most of our exemption certificates are full pages. So I would need to go back to the department to figure out whether we could actually embed the card for that specific person and have it available when they go and purchase those items. So if you would allow us some time to review that, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Kathleen. I will, in fact, what we'll do is I'll have you withdraw your motion, and we'll come back to this after doing some research, if that's okay with the second? Yes. Okay. And Senator Peck? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I
Okay.
will withdraw the motion to amend at this time.
That's great. Thank you. Senator Baumgardner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only ask is, could we please contact the state of Oklahoma to find out how they do it to streamline this? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And if there are any other questions on this, could you please get with Senator Peck so we can look at it? Committee, I also want to work other bills that we've heard. We'll get to 433 and hopefully 311 and some others, especially the property tax. I would ask Eddie that you get us some of those handouts from previous tax committees and interim committees on property tax, so that we have a history. I know it's going to be a quick turnaround. Committee, I've also ran into issue that's come up. I've known about it, but it became quite obvious in the last few weeks as to interpretation of valuations and how we have a statewide, we're supposed to be unique across the state, but that isn't necessarily going on. And I don't know if the committees, we're under the gun for time at this point, but if you would be receptive to an informational hearing on some of the inconsistencies in the valuation in the state, would that be productive at this time, or would you rather hold off until a later date? You can think about it and let me know. We can visit in the committee tomorrow and kind of decide what direction to go. I also, Senator Solentrop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Based on what you're referring to, how egregious have you heard that these are? I mean, do you believe it's a real problem?
It's a very real
So I
problem.
think we ought to do it.
Okay. I'll get some information pulled together. Actually, Eddie will. He's, I can't thank, again, Amelia and Eddie. They do a wonderful job, and John and Pam staffing the committee in the office. We wouldn't be able to do as much work. We pushed through quite a bit of work on this committee, and it is because of their efforts, and JG and others that we're able to, and Gordon.
Again, Madam Chair, I'm only supporting the issue because you brought it up and you seem to be very concerned about it. So if it's at that level and we certainly need to look at it, let's do it.
Okay, we'll do that. I'll schedule an informational hearing. Committee, we only have this week and next, so there will be some adjustments to the schedule so that we can queue some of this stuff up quickly. Any other business to be brought before the committee? Seeing none, we're adjourned.